This presentation will walk you through how to write a lesson plan. After watching the presentation, you will be able to understand how to write a lesson plan using this new lesson plan template. You will also learn what needs to be included in each category. Make sure to access the lesson plan template in your course. First, you will start off with choosing a title. Have fun making the title and make sure it relates to your learning outcomes. Write a brief introduction containing 2 to 3 sentences discussing what the lesson is about. Next comes the context category. Think about what learning has taken place before this lesson. What prior knowledge do students need to know? Is this an extension of a topic that has already been introduced? Up next, you will fill out the standards that are relevant to the lesson. Most courses will use the Common Core standards or standards related to your state. This should be your starting point to build from. The grade level you choose needs to match the standard from the same grade level. Here's an example from the Common Core standards in writing that focuses on the text tape and purposes domain. You can have more than one standard. After choosing the standard or standards, you will fill out the essential questions. You will need to create 1 to 3 essential questions from the larger curriculum unit students will be working toward answering. These questions should be directed towards students and use higher order thinking skills. You can use Bloom's taxonomy as your guide, with focusing on the top 3 levels when constructing your questions. This is a wonderful resource by EdSake Interactive by William Hoot on the older and newer version of Bloom's. Then you will fill out the learner outcomes of the lesson. What are your objectives? These need to be written in the statement using "the student will be able to." An action verb needs to follow this statement, and it needs to be measurable. Here are 2 examples of learning outcomes, expanding from the Common Core standards. Up next is the assessment piece. What evidence will be provided to display each student's progress toward learning outcomes? You only have to use a formative assessment. The 2 main assessments are summative and formative assessments. Summative assessments evaluate student learning and usually come at the end of a unit or compare against a standard or benchmark. Summative assessments could include a test, project, portfolio, a writing piece on the topic, or student evaluation. Formative assessments provide feedback during the instructional process while learning is taking place. This is not a grade, but to guide a teacher in making decisions about future instruction. Examples of formative assessment could include observations of the activity during the lesson, reflection in a journal, discussions, questions, exit slips, or think, pair, share. For the resource section, lists any resources and materials needed to implement the lesson. The anticipatory set is your hook to engage students. During this, you will inform students what they will know or be able to do as a result of the lesson. Explain how students will be engaged and think about the strategies that you will use to provide a smooth transition into the lesson. After the anticipatory set, you will explain the procedures. Think about each step that needs to be taken for the lesson to be implemented. This needs to include clear, specific steps, differentiate strategies, and best practices. In this section, you need to include a minimum of 3 questions designed to provide opportunities for higher order thinking. If reading a book, what questions or steps will you take when reading the book? Then you will fill out the closer section that will wrap up your lesson. What strategies will provide opportunities for each student to reflect on what has been learned during the lesson? What questions could be asked to show reflection on the learning outcomes or essential questions? A few examples of how students could reflect are to fill out an exit slip, pair share with a partner, talk about what was learned and fill out the L section in a KWL chart, or make a journal entry answering questions. Finally, you will fill out the modifications, accommodations section. This will include any modifications or accommodations that are identified on an individualized education plan or 504 plans. What is the difference between accommodations or modifications? Accommodations provide equity in the classroom. Think of leveling the playing field. Examples could be having more time on an assignment, listening to an audio recording of a book instead of reading it, speaking answers to someone to scribe, or have a timer to help with time management. Modifications alter or change the learning expectation. Think of changing the playing field. Examples could be to change the performance criteria, decrease the problems given on an assignment, or provide a different instructional level for a student. Think about the students that are not identified and if they need any type of accommodation or modification. Provide multiple ways and opportunities for students to demonstrate the concept. Make sure to look over the lesson plan to meet each of these categories. I hope this presentation helped you gain more knowledge on how to write a lesson plan.